Welcome to today's CIT Tech for Business podcast. Today we're sitting down with Kyle, Rob, Jake, and members of the marketing team, Kelsey and Tara, and we're going to be discussing the future of technology and looking forward to 2023. I'm going to kick it off with introductions, and our question to our panelist is going to be, in lieu of school kind of starting today in most districts, tell us if whether or not you really like the first day of school. I will kick it off and then pass the baton. My name is Tara. I'm part of the marketing team here at CIT, and I will say I did like the first day of school, especially when I could drive myself to school, because I am like an early bird and I wanted to get there so I could socialize and know like what all happened last night and who's mad at who during those high school years. So I will pass this now to Kelsey.
I love that answer. And I'm Kelsey, as she mentioned, I'm a member of our marketing team as well. And I think I was the exact opposite of you. I loved shopping for school. That made me so happy. But when the alarm went off that first day, I was like, nope, whole lot of nope. People, early mornings, nope, 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 nope. So I am very thankful that today I woke up to my work alarm and I was like, I get to sit here and drink coffee and talk to less people. So it's a good day.
I can go next. I'm Kyle Edering, the president and CEO. And from my school memory side, it would really depend on the age or the grade at the time side. Middle school, absolutely not. Not difficult years around that middle school time frame, that 6 to 8 side of it. As a senior, absolutely. A lot to look forward to as a senior side going through it, not the less 2 or 3 study halls added into the schedule and you're done by noon kind of thing. So, made it obviously a lot easier, a lot funner, and you're kind of enjoying being the king of the school. So, for me, it really depended on the year and the time.
I can go next. Rob Kramer. I'm the director of managed services. And I'll say all throughout school, I had a love-hate relationship with the first day of school. I loved the idea of the first day of school, from the idea that I knew very rarely was I ever going to actually have any real schoolwork or any homework for that first day. I hated the idea that I had to go back and potentially interact with other people, as I was not a real big people person. So I had a love-hate relationship all through school with that.
Yeah, my name's Jake. I lead up our cloud services department at CIT. I'm probably more like Rob. I wasn't the biggest fan of going back to school, I would say. I missed my free summer days and being able to do whatever I want, even if it meant work. I like work better than school, so I'm happy to be out of it now.
Agreed.
I love it. Thank you guys all for sharing. Love the topic. And yeah, 'tis the season for back to school. So a lot of fun and excitement for the kids. And I think also the parents, like, hey, it's time for the kids to get back to school and get out of the house. So, but I'll get us back on track with the topic at hand. I'd mentioned before, we're going to be talking about the future of technology. So my first question to all three of you is, where do you really see technology going?
That's a super broad question, Tara.
I could start because I go on for like 3 hours on this stuff. But just a couple of things, the way we kind of look at transition our customers to get ready for where the future is going. And there's a big reason Jake's on this podcast with us. Sides of it is obviously the transition, the continued movement of moving, from on-premise infrastructure and on-premise systems that you have to manage, care for, protect, is again the movement to really be on a cloud and subscription-based service, and it's close to the provider, and allowing the provider to own and you subscribe on a seat basis to those overall services. That trend obviously has been going on for a number of years. Sides with it, it's really matured, to the point of line of business apps are pretty much that's the de facto model for them. And it definitely is on our more collaborative suite sides, your 365s, your Google G Suites, to those components. But, even most recently, in a number of years, we've been working on the transition to, the end of the Active Directory. Have some podcasts on that, and getting to the desktop management and the user credentials essentially all be in the cloud, and there's no on-premise Active Directory either. So, that movement combined with things like, the physical security side with products like Verkada and those other component sides of it, bringing those into play are definitely, kind of a key planning part for us when we work with our customer sides, is identifying what that transition looks like and planning that out over the next 36, 60 months, because it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's definitely a transition that's occurring within, certainly in the small to medium space. The last talk about I'll throw out there is the artificial intelligence integration into the suites, and the continued involvement of that cloud AI in the power that it drives to handle quick calculations, computes, quick behavioral analysis sides of it across all aspects of the technology sides of it. Security is obviously a big factor in both physical and cyber side of those, on endpoint protection and other devices, inline network, artificial intelligence to detect anomalies, but also in just overall just general compute side of it, bringing in artificial intelligence to business analytics and the other sides of it. Just the power of that aggregated cloud compute on the amazing things that it can drive, and speed and efficiency sides of it is just really just starting to blossom, and we're seeing just tremendous products and subsets coming from that. So really fantastic things there.
I'd like to add to that just a little bit. I think there is, as we move forward in the next year or two, I think there is a trend in business of being very cautious on evaluating that cloud compute, right? There is definitely some services and some functionalities that make all the sense in the world to go up to the cloud. But there are some businesses that are realizing that there are still some reasons they may not want to have everything in the cloud, for performance reasons, for whatever. So there is a bit of call it a right sizing, if you will, of the services and the tasks that they run, where they may actually pull some stuff back out of the cloud and say this actually worked better and it was actually more affordable for us to actually run this particular application this way. So as we move forward and we work with our customers, one of the things we like to look at is just making sure we're right, doing the right thing for them, making sure that the right tasks and the right workloads are being moved to the cloud.
Yeah, I think, don't you think that aligns with, again, that why that's could be a 5-year plan, because your applications have to be obviously suited for the cloud side with it. So when you change an ERP system, rather than it's the analysis of, do you put the ERP or line of business app, do you do an in-place upgrade or an upgrade on premise to the next version, or does it go to their cloud offering? And in many cases, we're seeing those providers not offer the on-premise upgrade any longer. So it becomes, which is obviously a large expense, and it's a change in methodology, but it's just planning ahead and knowing when it happens. It rarely is, we're going to have this done in the fourth quarter. We're going to get to that. It's a very transitional approach to how you make that side of it, and there may very well always be, something that is performance wells with an on-premise, but they traditionally now are being added with some kind of cloud connect to them, so they have kind of a hybrid approach with there's some local storage, but even cloud management of the devices to allow for, management purposes, to be able to get to them in a secure, consolidated manner without the requirement of having to VPN first or open up holes in firewalls and those types of things. So, there's a lot of aspects to all that conversation, of course.
And you can talk a lot about the benefits of it too, because especially in this hybrid world that we live in today, the flexibility for employees and the customers to be able to access resources from really anywhere they have internet, it often outweighs any other concerns of expense and stuff that people have had in the past, because they find just the improved efficiencies and the product gains that they get are well worth it.
Yeah, I did want to, if you guys don't mind, pose a question to Jake, just because he does head up our cloud services team. And as Kyle had alluded to, we had previously Jake on a podcast to talk about cloud versus on-prem, the SmackDown. So if you haven't listened to that one, I would highly recommend that. But Jake, my question to you is, when you have these conversations with customers, how are you determining, what that trend looks like for that organization and where they should place things? If you don't mind talking.
Yeah, we really have to break apart everything that they have on premise currently today, what they already have in the cloud, and we have to really piece different cloud offerings together that satisfy their needs for what they have on premise. So we don't necessarily take what they have running in the server infrastructure today and exactly replicate it in Microsoft Azure. We take pieces apart and we say we should move these files to SharePoint. We should move these to OneDrive. These can get moved to Teams. We take these different pieces of their on-premise footprint apart and we put it into cloud-based offerings that Microsoft has today. Once we start doing that, we realize that their need for a server infrastructure really gets quite a bit smaller than they have it today. So we have better ways of utilizing the technologies in the cloud so that it does minimize that cost a little bit. If you took what you have today and match it in Azure, yeah, the cost is going to be pretty high, but we have alternatives to doing that. We don't necessarily need a big file server anymore. We can move these things into an already paid subscription of SharePoint, and now our disk space and our compute space is a lot smaller than we already have on premise. So that helps break apart that cost and kind of plan how they should move forward into the future.
Yeah, to that end, Jake, don't you think when you look at many of them already have storage costs allocated into their subscription fees they're already paying when they're already using 365 for email and maybe Teams and a few things, and then to really start leveraging, the amount of OneDrive storage for what was on their home drives and the amount of baked in SharePoint storage that they already have in their subscription. Again, you're not changing your monthly spend, you're just utilizing it more to its fullest, and that's definitely a thing we've seen for a number of customers.
It's pretty normal for customers to start with a cloud-based offering for maybe email services, right? But they don't realize that their subscription they're paying for includes so much more, right? And so we can capitalize on that monthly expense of their licensing to now offset some of their on-premise workload and really start using that license to its fullest potential.
Great. That actually leads me into my next question, Jake. You talked about planning. So when we're looking at the trends for 2023, what should businesses really start planning for? How do they look into that to say, where do I prioritize and what should I be planning for? If you guys can tell me a little bit more about that.
It all kind of comes down to their on-premises infrastructure, right? And do they have aging server hardware operating systems that they need to plan for to get moved off of? Do they move to a newer system on-premise or do they move to the cloud? They look at what they already have running in the cloud environments and what can they start building on upon there. So like I said before, typically we see customers start with email services moved up to the cloud. One thing they want to make sure they're doing after they make that transition is that they're using some sort of mobile device capabilities with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. From there, we can grow into doing modern desktop with their Windows compute devices, joining those up to Azure Active Directory so we can minimize the need for Active Directory on premise. Moving files up to a cloud-based storage solution. That's typically how we see that get moved. And then applications, right? Getting those moved to a cloud-based software solution. So we're really reducing the need for these end users to have to connect to an on-premise infrastructure to keep doing their day-to-day job. At CIT, for instance, we've kind of cut ties to needing to connect back to an on-premise system at all. We've cut back on our VPN need, remote desktop need, things like that. We've been able to pull all those into a cloud-based software solution so we can all work remotely and connect to those offerings from our house with the security, of course, tackled on top of that as well, just as secure as it was before, just a different approach to it.
Yeah, I think in many ways it's even, it's more secure in the fact that if you go to, Azure AD, we leverage Okta at CIT for the user identities and identity management. And by driving all of these cloud systems to that as our source of truth for identity and doing single sign-on to that single source, we're protecting one big gate. so you can have very, very strong, geo policies, travel, unlikely travel range on login geographically to make flags of erroneous logins and centralized behavioral, again, where there's odd behaviors on logins to early detect potential suspicious activity. Rather than having to look at all these gates between a VPN, Active Directory, all these things, you really can, focus and make the investment to have very, very strong securities and measures, on fewer points of entry. And it allows for that to happen, and that's one of the things we really, strive for on those sides. It's very, very difficult to protect a lot of points of entry, and whatever you can do to eliminate all those points and consolidate that, it's going to reduce risk, and it's going to reduce cost in the longer
And it's
term.
a lot easier from a management capability too, to manage one interface in one cohesive system in the Microsoft Cloud platform, right? One login for your user accounts, right? So yeah, lots of benefits of it.
Also easier to automate. You can do things like auto provisioning on those things where you create the account once and it can have, auto licensing and auto assignment, and the cloud desktops auto deployment of drop ship a device and have it auto provision, so it minimizes the having to have, an IT resource, which everybody knows are harder to find nowadays, and, keeps them focused on more complex, things when more complex things aren't working, and automates things that are, just your traditional support of new desktop patching, those types of things. So.
Yeah, it makes it pretty slick. I actually had to wipe my computer a couple days ago, and from scratch get up and running system fully ingested into our Azure Active Directory with all the apps pushed onto it. Within 2 hours, I was back up and running as if it had never happened. I mean, it really makes it very easy to do that with new devices and with existing devices for users as well. So.
And you did that without even being an administrator on the system.
No administrator.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. That self-service IT is the thing there. That's what you're driving for.
Yep.
I love that conversation just about the process automation, and like anything's possible, it seems, with the realm of that, with that trend going. But let's talk a little bit about that and AI and process automation. Like, what are the benefits for some organizations to really implement that, and why do we see that that's really important with the trend for 2023?
Well, I'll jump in there. I mean, as Kyle alluded to, the process automation, the ability to kick off a process in one spot and have it just take care of everything. So in this day and age, we have logins to multiple portals all over the place for different services. If you can create your user once in an identity management system and have it auto provision the user in each of these other portals, tie the logins all back to the single point of truth with multi-factor authentication. It just simplifies your administration. It makes it to the point where you could literally give like an HR person the ability to say, here's the new user's information, and have the system then take care of provisioning it and doing all the back end work through that automation. Greatly simplifying it and reducing your time to get a new user set up. We're really just kind of on the beginning edges of seeing that widely adopted, I think, and it's a very exciting future for us.
Yeah. The standards that are out there evolving, and you're seeing more and more of the cloud providers are adhering to these standards to allow for that single sign-on, / federation, to allow that single source of identity where you don't have to individually provision users within those system sides of it. They're tied to a central authentication side. But as you go through those sides of it, the other point, all what Rob mentioned is very, very true side of it. The other aspect is the you remove the errors from manual creation side of it, and those errors tend to be where mistakes happen, where they have greater privileges than you expected, and that becomes a potential data breach, and that was just by human error. And when you can automate and just know this user comes on, they are a technician goes into this group means they get this, and that's done. There isn't a mistake that they automatically got dropped in administration and now they have access to payroll or whatever, maybe, so those are all just, strong reasons why you want to continue to move in that direction side, because it's going to, help mitigate potential problems before they even occur.
Yeah. And on the flip side, the reality too is employees do leave sometimes, right? And we have to clean up these accounts when users are gone, and to make sure we make this minimalized, right? And points of where we need to disable user accounts. It's just a lot easier to manage that when you have a single pane of glass as opposed to an entire checklist of systems you have to go through. And it makes it a lot quicker too. And you need to do that on a timely basis. Sometimes we need to do it at a very scheduled time frame. It just makes it easier to do that.
Yeah, that offboarding, that's a great point, Jake. That offboarding, is as important as the onboarding. In many cases, even more critical in a lot of cases side of it, to know that you offboard effectively and have that automated just like the onboarding, and know that, and just schedule it. Say at 5:00 on Friday, this account is disabled, and it immediately goes effect across all key systems of data points. Especially when you have cloud, it becomes, you need to manage that, because you don't want to have to log into each cloud system to manually do that.
And I will say, as a network administrator for years, the offboarding is probably almost more important than the onboarding, because I can't tell you how many times we've come back and found we missed a portal someplace where we forgot to remove somebody's rights, and as best we try to document it, man, if you can automate that process, it just ensures you're doing the right thing all the time.
I will say, a lot of this discussion tends to come back to security a lot.
Yeah.
And
it's the world we live in.
Yeah, I'm going to do kind of my selfish plug here. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we will be talking a lot kind of about security measures. So I don't want to leave everybody hanging like, well, why aren't you talking more about security? But come October, we're really going to dive into, what that looks like. And with the landscape ever changing, like how do you stay kind of ahead of that? And that was kind of, I wanted to lead into my next question is, how do small to medium-sized businesses stay ahead of all these trends? Like there's so much out there, Kyle, you'd mentioned AI, there's the continued growth of Internet of Things, Wi-Fi, like the 5G, the metaverse, how do businesses like say, I got all these trends, what do I do?
Well, again, selfishly, I'd say you should be, working with a technology partner side of it. I mean, if most organizations, you obviously you have your go-to-market industry that you're servicing your customers in, and most likely it's not in technology. But it is what providers like us do. I mean, it's what we're in it all the time. We have visibility to the trends. We have, key vendor relationships with organizations like Microsoft and HP and Dell and Cisco and those other, industry technology groups that are shaping a lot of these technologies, and they're communicating that to their partner communities generally first, through different, annual events throughout the year. And the other sides of it, that's providing insight as to the trend, where it's going. And usually what they're talking about now, we start to see show up in our, customers, and in the pricing and in the packaging of services and offerings, start to show up in 12 to 18 months after a conference in the year we're in. So it is those pre-indicators that help to shape us on where we recommend our customers are going, because we can see the industry side of it. Certainly doesn't preclude somebody who really wants to go deep in technology between all the social medias. The information's on the internet. It's obviously out there, but it's a question of, do you need to do your day job, or do you want to get into this side and leverage what the partners do really well? And I think that's one of them. So I would strongly advocate, have a relationship there, whether, whatever the relationship is and how it levels, obviously up to each customer side where that value comes in at, but have it, because organizations like ours thrive in having these conversations. We obviously have a lot of passion about talking about it, and it's a zero cost to have conversations on those things and to get that direction. So if you don't have one, you should.
No, Kyle, I think that's a very, very valid point there. And, that's why too, we developed these podcasts, is like, we're really looking to educate our community of SMB organizations out there. And we love having these type of topics so we can say, hey, we're fully aware of what's going on in today's trends, and we're here to help if you do have those questions. So thank you for reminding everybody of all of that. So I just wanted to pose the question because I know we're going to be kind of coming up on time. Is there any other trends that you guys feel like it's really worth mentioning today that's like, you gotta be aware of it and you need to get something in place? Anything stand out for you right now other than what we've talked about today?
I have one.
Okay.
Shocker. Augmented reality, I think, is really going to start coming. I think that technology between, you hear Microsoft floated as, their Halo, their Halo augmentative, Google Glass was in that category. They're all experimenting with this. There are some commercial products currently using it in like automotive repair and different area sides of it where, it transposes, virtual on into the reality scope through glasses or goggle sides of what they're wearing. But if you think about the potential impact of the efficiencies of whatever the article I was reading on the auto repair was, they're wearing the goggles, they look at an engine, it self-identifies the make, the model, highlights all the parts, and automatically orders. So repair times on an engine repair side go from an average of 50 minutes to 15 for the same resource side of it. Just because they're not looking at it, going back to a book or searching online and going through that, it's automatically layering exactly what needs to happen, to even transposing instructional videos of how to replace the part or how to do those things. Imagine that in medical where you're looking at particular things and it's able to identify automatically using that artificial intelligence plugged in to give them that Iron Man style, heads up that Jarvis provided to Iron Man side, and those things is really in the reality scope. And I think that's going to continue to drive where we will have, our Apple glasses with information in front. Whether it was real or not, I saw a demonstration of what they proposed was the Apple glasses, which they say is actually coded into the iPhones already for the support of it, where it shows Apple Maps being augmented on your Apple glasses, and it's actually showing you the directional arrows in front of you as you're walking or driving with your glasses on. So no need to look at it. It's just in your heads-up display, looking out your glasses. It's layering over top of the reality you're seeing. Facial recognition, somebody's name's popping up while you're looking at them with your glasses, and who their spouse is, who their kids are, who their age is. I mean, there's just, a tremendous amount of stuff that just automatically feed to you through that. And that's, I think, going to explode in the upcoming years. It's coming.
That's like really cool stuff, but also kind of scary. And it's like, gets back to the heart though, too, of like, how do you secure any of that information? Because I mean, it looks as though they're reading everything that they know about you. So it's like, oh, they're going to know that I have children and what their ages are and things like that. So I'm like,
yeah, there'll be more data privacy laws, I'm sure.
podcast.
There'll be more data privacy laws following through, like, GDPR and those other sides of it. There'll be a whole raft of regulations around it, like any kind of disruptive technology tends to spawn new areas of concern and data privacy side of it. So yeah, it'll all be there, but you look at like every technology shift, and as new technologies evolve, there's always, some give and take. There's a lot of advancements, there's a lot of efficiencies, like could save a lot of lives, it could save a lot of, response time. It can make more talented people more efficient and allow that talent to have access to more, to allow a doctor to see more patients because they can operate faster, saves lives. I mean, those things are dynamic, are very, dramatic. And the other sides of it, is there a negative? Sure. Are there data privacy? Yeah, absolutely. And, but I, for one, very excited about it. If Apple glasses came out next week, I'd have them. I mean, I'm all in, so.
I was going to say, Kyle,
cool.
Are you signed up to like be the pre-order of these glasses? Because I'm like, we're going to have you on a podcast and you're just going to tell us all about these cool glasses.
Hey, they launch. I'm on the click, in the Apple store to buy it the launch day. I'm in. I'll be Gen 1. I'll take it.
Great.
As I say, we need to marketing test those, right? Yeah. Love it.
I'd like to throw.
I'll be waiting for the contacts version of that, Kyle, and then I'll be on board.
There you go.
There you go.
Can I throw out one other thing for businesses to consider going forward here? And I think it's one that is also going to gain in popularity, and that's really compute as a service. So rather than buying your computers for your employees, you basically lease them or rent them. You have a package deal. You got a new employee, they get a computer, they get an account set up, and you just have a monthly cost for it. I think that's something that's going to take off more in the future. We've seen a little bit of that in the past, but I think it's becoming more popular because as you have these dynamic changes in your workforce, you can kind of get it down to, I just know what my cost is for an employee. I don't have to buy a whole computer. I don't have to try to get it to last a certain amount of time. It's just taken care of. It's bundled into my service.
Yep. Yeah. That you're talking about going to an operational and OpEx versus a CapEx, and and OpEx / subscription compute is. I'd agree with that. That's definitely obviously been the trend in the software side. We were just talking about with the other cloud side of it, but yeah, I think what comes along for the ride is, say, if I have everything else in an OpEx, subscription thing of it, why can't I get, my compute power in the same program side of that? And we're actually looking at that at CIT as an offering as well. So those are things that, I'd agree with that, Rob. We are looking at, because I think there is a marketplace that has the demand for that kind of approach and wants that kind of consistency, where there's tons of fatigue on the, every time I meet with you, you give me another quote to buy more hardware, and they want, some consistency on it to say, I'd just like to know how much technology costs on a per employee and know that it's capped at that, so I can run the rest of my business. And, I think there's an appetite for a market for that.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a nice ending note for today's podcast. I mean, it was great. We talked about these technology trends for 2023. We dove into a lot of the process automation, some of the cloud services of what that looks like moving forward. And as you mentioned, just the computing piece of how that can easily be accessible, but still with security kind of at the heart of everything. So I wanted to thank Kyle, Rob, Jake, and Kelsey for today's conversation. As you guys all know, we love to talk, which is why we've got these podcasts going, and we can tangent at time, but I'm all in for the Apple glasses. So hopefully we can get on the waiting list here soon and test those out. But as always, if you have any sort of feedback or even additional topics that you guys want us to talk about, please visit cit-net.com/podcast, or you can email us at info@cit-net.com. And as always, we look forward to chatting with you more next week.
Thanks, everyone.